Okay, this is Andrew. I did not like the way that first video came out. I wanted to stick more with the way I'm actually doing it here in the code. So, of course, there's many ways to do things, so you don't have to do it this way, but anyway, I just wasn't happy with the way that came out, so I'm doing it over. Okay, so let's go back to the add key. This should be the add key. I just tested it. Okay, we see that's what we get. So we get, this is the password, the input key, and this is the data, and this is the XOR of this information. So let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. Let me pull up a ASCII table. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at this code. This just put out these three tables. Well, what I did was, let's just go to 1. So I'm just pulling out the first table, right? So let's just change this to 1 and take a look at it. Okay, let's see what we get. Okay. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Okay, so we're down to just this one table now. So this is the code. So we're going to take a look at this code. Well, what I've done is I just pulled it out again. Okay, so basically after each variable I just put in an echoes the variable so we can look at the value, right? And then I commented out the for loops. So the for loops aren't active right now. So basically it's just going to go one time through and that's it. So let's take a look at what happens. So here's the password, and ideally this should come from a user box on the web page. They enter this password. Okay, there is a pad function, and we had been discussing about taking some of these commands out of the loop, and we'll look at that in a little while. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is string length. That should be pretty self-explanatory. This is just returning the string length of this password minus this variable here, column count, which we'll talk about and look at in more detail here. Okay, so then we print out password length. We can even write, and that's good enough, equals whatever. And then so this thing called shift password, which is some kind of function here, and we're using column count and password length. So basically this just pulls out a subset of the string. So now what we're doing is we're just echoing out the shift, right? We're echoing out this variable. So we're going to take a look at that. And then we do that variable, we basically just get the ASCII decimal of the value, and then we're printing out the ASCII decimal, and then we're adding 1 to this variable column count, right? And then we're printing out the hex value, Okay. So let's take a look at this and see if it works. We want to add key 2, right? Okay. So let's see what we have. Alright, so the password length is 16. We agree that's true. The shift password or subset password is the full thing. Why? Because column count equals 0. So in this location, the string length is 16 because of this password. And in this location, let's pull that up. Okay, the wonderful world of pods. All right, so I pulled up this function that we're using here. Okay, and this is basically just a substring. So that means here's your string, right? So we're just pulling a part of that string out, and basically you need to define the start, which is column count, which is 0. So we're starting at 0. We're starting at A, right? And you need to find the length. The length is password length, which was returned from the string length, where column count is 0. So the password length should be the full thing, which is 16. So 16, column count 0, and then the variable, the string we're looking at is called password. So if you start looking at these two lines right here, you'll see that if this number goes to, instead of 0, it goes to 1, we're going to take a look at this, but what's going to happen is the string length is going to be 15 and not 16. And then if you come down here, what you're doing is you're starting at 1, right? So actually you'll be starting at B. So that means it's going to cut off the A, and then it's going to say the string length's now 15 and you're going to be at B, because when you go down to shift, when you go down to ORD, right, the next line, this just takes and converts the decimal for the first character in the string. So I want to make a substring that takes the A off the first time, the B the second, C, D, E, and then we can just loop through that and take all of these off. And that's actually what column count here is doing, +1, because you see we're going through this loop. I would be 1, and then J would, let's say I is 1, J goes 0, 1, 2, 3, and then goes back to 0 when I goes to 2. So if you were doing count equals J, it would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and it would be all messed up. So this column count is really just counting how many times you've gone through the loop so that you can subtract 1 each time off the string length and then tell the substring where to start. Okay, so that's good. Now let's go ahead and look at what else is in this section of the code. Where we did that, that's giving you the decimal, and then this is giving you the hexadecimal. So let's go ahead and take a look at the results of this, and we'll pull up our trusty table here. So this is the results we got. We can run it again so you know I'm not lying. Okay, so as predicted, password length is 16, right? That's coming out of here. And then the sub password or whatever is going to be the whole password in this case where count equals 0. All right, so then the first letter here is A, right? So what's the decimal ASCII value of A? Is 65. That's right here, 65. That's the password ASCII decimal. Okay, then column count we know is 1, but it was actually 0 when it went through here. It added 1 down here, so the next time through the loop it would be 1. The hex value of A is what? Okay, the hex value of A is 41. So that looks good. So let's go ahead and try what happens if we make column count 1. Alright, let's go ahead and do that. So you see here these values changed. This changed. So column count was 1, right? As we discussed previously. Oh, sorry, wrong one. I'm just going to close this. We won't need it anymore. Okay. Now you see the first letter in this substring is B, so it's going to convert this B to a decimal, an ASCII decimal, which is 66, correct? And the hex is 42. 66 and 42, that looks good. So let's go ahead and try a couple more. Let's try column count equals 2. And let's run that guy. Okay, so again, now we're starting at C, right? That's 0, 1, 2. So it's going to pull off the C, and it's going to turn that into a ASCII decimal value, which is going to be 67, and the hex value should be 43. 43. Okay, that's good. So at this point, you should see how this code is working, right? That should be pretty clear. So let's go ahead and look at, we'll go ahead and look at the full add key. Now what we just did was the input key, right? So basically I just copy that and do the same thing for the input data. So there's two of them, right? One is input key and one is input data. And now what we have to do is basically, so I just copied it again, and all I did this time was add this exclusive OR, right? So basically what it's doing now is it's adding the exclusive OR of those two values. So you can see this one is taking two strings. It's taking one string, right? The key was taking one string, and it's producing a, let's go over here and look at it. Take one string, and it's producing this table, which should be the table that's shown between your functions. So you could really use this code for everything. Now, you could theoretically, so it's taking one string, it's converting a hex value. You could theoretically put these values into a string and save them, and you don't have to use the for loop. And then you could later just use the rows and columns to, you could use the TR and the TD without using the for loops to print the table using your strings or whatever. So that is one way you could do it, but you don't have to. You can do this. This is really all the code you need inside of each function. You just to print this out between the functions on the web page. Okay, so now if you go back to the full add key, you see we just did the same thing again, right? And then, like I said, then we'll just basically do the same thing again, and then just just do the exclusive OR right here. This is the exclusive OR of the password ASCII decimal and the data ASCII decimal. And let's go ahead and run this. That's just a straight add key. So we can also go through these values here. and verify that these are correct. Again, I think we've already discussed this. They should all be 20. I picked the numbers such that they would be 20, the results. So the last thing to know here is, let me pause. I want to look up this function as well for you. Okay, so I pulled up this array push, and this, almost all programming languages that I'm familiar with have some way you can do what's called a dynamic array. And basically, if you see up here, I declared an empty array, right? That's my output XOR. So if we go down here and look, here's the array I'm outputting, okay? But here's what I'm calling array push. And if you go over here, array push is the array you're using, right? Which is my output XOR. And then the array that you want to add to it. Well, it started empty, but this XOR was just the XOR of the first. So we went through this whole case again where I pulled the first value off of the password and the first value. So here you can see it's the first value off of the password. And here it's the first value off of the data. So what happens then is it just finds the decimal value, just like we went through of both of them. This finds the decimal value of this finds the decimal value of the password, and this finds the decimal value of the data, and then goes ahead and increments that variable, and then ORs those two together, and then pushes it onto array. And it does that all the way 16 times, such that it builds this array. Now this array, you can see here we printed it. This array is what you want to pass between functions, okay? Alright, so I'm going to stop this video and then do another one that goes that does a little PowerPoint drawing of exactly how all this works to put it all together. So you see here, this code you have now, you can print out these to any picture, any function you want now. So, and if you don't want to do it that way, then you can save it in a string, right? And then later print out the string, and you don't even have to use the for loops. So there's many options of how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video and pick it up with the next one. Thanks.